Mysteries and codes, religious rites, and scientific formulas. That's the world of Dan Brown's thrillers, most famously The Da Vinci Code. And now there's a new one, The Secret of Secrets, out today. Secrets and codes are also part of Brown's own life, as senior arts correspondent Jeffrey Brown discovered during a visit to the author's home in New Hampshire for our Arts and Culture series, Canvas.
This I call the Fortress of Gratitude.
Fortress of Gratitude?
It is, it's one copy of all my books from around the world.
A dark brown library with its own secrets.
This is my favorite of the 7 secret passageways in the house.
Hiding memorabilia.
That's the first book I wrote at age 5, The Giraffe, the Pig, and the Pants on Fire. It's a thriller. And over here we have what's called an Inukshuk.
In the garden, a looming stone presence.
Inukshuk.
Inukshuk. It is an Inuit symbol of protection.
In the hallway, another hidden door.
So this here is the Wild Symphony Room.
Into a room filled with music and stuffed animals, related to a children's book titled Wild Symphony.
All right, now, Dan, we've only been together a short time, but you are clearly a quirky, what's the right word? Quirky guy.
Eccentric?
Eccentric?
Odd?
Yeah? Yeah?
Geeky? They're all true.
Yeah.
Also true, no secret here, Dan Brown is a phenomenally successful author, with more than 250 million books in print, translated into 56 languages. And his new thriller, he promises, is the biggest, twistiest yet. Nothing less than The Secret of Secrets.
You know what, it's no secret that I like to write about big topics. You know, the bloodline of Jesus Christ, artificial intelligence, world population. But I've always felt there's one topic that is bigger than all of them. And it relates to human consciousness, that lens through which we experience reality, we experience ourselves. And the tricky thing about writing about consciousness is it's a very ethereal topic. It's kind of squishy. So the challenge, and this book took quite a bit of time to write, the challenge was turning this ethereal topic into a fast-paced thriller.
All the Dan Brown hallmarks are here, including the hero.
And thereby define ourselves. How do we penetrate years?
Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon, played by Tom Hanks in 3 films made from Brown's novels. This time he's in love with noetic scientist Catherine Solomon, whose bold new theory of human consciousness threatens to upend centuries of science and understanding, and has unhappy people threatening her. There's the magical setting, Prague, an historical home to the occult. A mythological figure, the Golem, from Jewish mysticism. Murder, mayhem, all mixed with those trademark Dan Brown digressions that expound on an ancient cult or linguistic code or scientific theory that will unlock a mystery and, not incidentally, offer his hero another escape. But every detail, Brown insists, is based on something real, and he's done the research to prove it.
I want the reader to know that when Robert Langdon is talking about an experiment that proves precognition is a reality, I want the reader to know, no, this really happened, and here's the date it happened, and here's the scientist that did it. I think it makes the book relevant and exciting.
You feel that a thriller should teach something.
Not all thrillers need to teach, and that's what I like to do, because I like to learn, and I think a lot of readers like to learn. I like to create thrillers that teach. Ideally, if I've done my job, you don't notice that it's teaching. You turn a page and say, I had no idea. That's fascinating. Really, that's true? Amazing. I'll research that later, because at the moment I have to get Langdon, you know, he's hanging by his fingernails somewhere. And so you read the next page to find out what happens to the characters. That's why we read fiction. But along that way, it's peppered with what I consider shocking information, whether it's about Prague or about science or about history. And that's what's so fun about writing these books, is how much I learn.
In fact, Brown's original goal was music. He grew up near where he lives today. His father was a math teacher at Phillips Exeter Academy, his mother an accomplished church organist. After college, he moved to LA to try to make it as a singer-songwriter.
The record came out and it tanked. It sold about 12 copies. And I've heard it recently, and there's a reason it sold 12 copies. Part of it was timing, part of it was just wasn't a great record.
He then turned to his other love, writing. 3 novels sold poorly.
But you had known failure.
I had known only failure.
You had known only failure.
Only failure.
Yeah.
Then in 2003 came the Da Vinci Code.
So I'm in Portland starting my tour for the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
And what can only be called overnight success, which Brown learned of through a fax from his editor.
And after my talk, I walked into the lobby of this hotel, and the guy behind the desk said, "Mr. Brown, we have a fax for you." This is back in the age of faxes.
Right.
And this is what he handed me.
Dan #1.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest, including controversy and criticism from the Catholic Church over his depiction of Jesus' life, was a pop culture phenomenon, parody included.
Somebody sent me this, the Pope saying, "You were right."
Pope Benedict admits to Dan Brown, "You were right."
And along with the movies and sudden sales of those early books, as well as the new ones, has allowed Dan Brown his quirky life.
I do a lot of writing out here.
A lot of writing?
A lot of writing. I'll have a dictaphone and just walk this labyrinth.
The Secret of Secrets took Brown 6 years to research and write, much of it done in a room up another narrow, winding stairway. There's no formula for thriller writing, he says, but there are rules. For example, keeping all those intricate plot lines in your head.
You don't need to know it all every day.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Really, you're creating a framework, kind of like a scaffolding on which to hang all of this information.
Is it true that you start at the ending?
Yes. You absolutely must know the ending of a thriller before you start it. Some of the details and intricate plotting in the middle may not be what you started with, but the foundation is the same. You know who the bad guy is. You know how he gets his just desserts. You know all that. You know the twist.
But do you go down a lot of paths that you just say, "Oh, this isn't working"?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I do. Yeah, listen. This is a 200,000 word novel. I easily wrote 1 million words, 800,000 of which disappeared.
Of course, not everyone will love the results. Over the years, some critics have not so gently skewered the Dan Brown style. He's used to it, sort of.
What I do very intentionally, specifically, and you either love it or hate it. There's not a lot of middle ground, and that took some getting used to also. When I had this, of course it did. I would love to tell you that success makes me immune. No, it still hurts. You wish everybody loved what you do. They don't. And when they tell you how they really feel, it hurts. It just does. And that's just, it's the nature of being a creative person for a living. You put it out in the world. And somebody told me once, another very successful author said, when you put a book out, it's like taking a hot air balloon with a target on it, floating it up, handing everybody a gun and saying, "What do you think?" And that's what it feels like on September 9th. That's what it will feel like when the book comes out.
It's certainly a very big balloon. The first printing of The Secret of Secrets, 1.5 million copies. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown in New Hampshire.